Welcome to my channel, Mary We Meet. My name is Brooks, the Sacred Iseum Witch, and today I'm going to be showing you how to cast a Health and Rebirth spell jar. This spell is part of our December monthly subscription box. If you are not subscribed, don't worry, I'll be listing the items needed below, or you can pause the video if you want to take a look over the spell. The items that you're going to need is either some jute or twine. This is actually a piece of raffia. Some red sandalwood. You can use the chips or the powder. This is an optional item. It's not needed, but I do recommend it. You'll need a jar. It can be of any size. I recommend a small size so it can fit in your pocket if you want to carry it with you. And a screw on top so you can add to it if you want. This is a Sun Pendant. The spell is harnessing the energy of the sun and representing the sun god. You'll also need a dress candle, some white pine bark, some blessed thistle. You'll also need some red garnet. In the box you would have received some garnet chips. I'm actually going to be using this bracelet. That way when I'm done with the spell, I can actually wear it and continue on with its magic. You will also need some Health and Rebirth oil, or any oil that's associated with attributes for health. An incense holder. This is actually one of my favorite incense holders because it has a really deep channel, so it catches the ashes without making a mess all over my working space. You will want to have either some amber incense or sun incense, which has attributes to the sun. As this spell is working with sun energy and celebrating the birth of the sun during Yule, we are harnessing in that energy of it, the whole rebirth, health, and new beginnings. And just doing a quick check over, making sure I have everything. It's very important that you make sure you have all of your items needed before you begin any spell. So I do prefer to use matches over a lighter. And then lastly, for this spell, we do need a brass bell. I suppose you can use any kind of bell. Personally, for myself, I've always used brass. So I know that brass works for my magic, so I recommend brass. This item here is not needed. It just fell off my incense holder. It's just a beaded rose quartz with a tree of life and a pentagram on it. I like to always just keep it on my incense holder. So let me go ahead and clear my space and we can go ahead and get started on the spell. We're going to begin by dressing the candle with the Health and Rebirth oil. Even though the candle comes pre-dressed in your subscription box with appropriate herbs and oil, I always highly recommend that you anoint it again yourself and make sure that you're putting your intent into the candle, which the intent is to bring a barrier of protection against illness, to aid your body in the regeneration of health cells, and to release all that does not serve you. It will also bring you a fresh start to become the best version of yourself, like the sun god, being reborn. If you are familiar with my spell work or watching in my past videos, you know that I dress my candles from top to bottom. You can dress your candles however you like. And now I'm just putting my intent into the candle. This took a little while, so I sped it up. Next, we're going to be clearing the energy between the air and the astral plane. This will just help our connection and our spell work travel through without any additional barriers. If you don't have a bell, this step is not completely necessary, but from the first time that I ever wrote this spell, I've been doing it with the bell. This spell works very well, so I mimic exactly every step, so I do recommend the bell. And again, with all my spell work, I just prefer to use matches over a lighter. So let's go ahead and begin. As I light this candle, I'm going to say, "Power of the sun, reborn each year, I call upon your magic here. Rays of light shining bright, fix my health and make me right. Remove any illness I may have, protecting me from any coming back. I cast this spell while I make this jar, carrying this magic with me near and far. I'm just going to sit for a moment and continue to put more intent into the candle until I'm ready to move forward with the next step. So next I'm going to be lighting the incense to smudge my space and the items. But before I do that, I'm going to hold the incense in my dominant hand and also charge it with my intent. And again, my intent is to bring a barrier of protection against illness and to aid my body in the regeneration of healthy cells and to release all that does not serve me. So while I'm charging, that's pretty much what I'm thinking over and over again. I'm going to use the incense to smudge all of my items and my space, and including myself. So right now I'm just circling around the candle, getting around my arms and my body. And then I'll be smudging my table. Initially, I'm not going to be smudging the other items. As I'm needing them is when I'm going to be smudging them in the smoke. Next, we're going to begin the process of actually creating the spell jar. Before I do use the jar, like I said, I'm going to smudge it. And anytime that I'm doing a spell jar, I like to make sure that I get a good amount of the smoke inside the jar. And then I just seal it up for a little bit. Let that smoke fully encase inside and out. I'm just smudging the pendant. Garnet. All of the loose items I'm smudging now. When I get to the herbs, I'm going to smudge those as I go ahead and put them into the jar. There's really no other way for me to smudge this oil, so I typically always just smudge the entire oil jar. And the purpose of this in my spell work is to add layers of energy to your spell and making sure that all of those energies are cohesive and all connected. So when I'm bringing each of the items in through the smoke, it's making sure that each of those items are touched and connected with the intention that I put into the incense, as well into the candle, as well as into each additional item that's going into the jar. And this is just adding and building up layer after layer of energy, which is building up the entire focus of the spell. First, I'm going to start with the red garnet. If you have the spell sheet that came in your monthly subscription box, it does mention emerald, and that's completely optional, but it's not necessary. I've used emerald in the past, and I've used it without, and I found that the effects were the same. If you have emerald and want to give it a little extra oomph, definitely feel free to do so. Emerald is also a stone of Yule, so if you're doing the spell around Yule time, emerald does go with the season. Next, I'm adding in the white pine bark. And instead of smudging the entire bag, I want to get the actual smoke on the pine bark. So I'm holding a pinch of it in my hand while I hold it over the smoke, and then I'll go ahead and add it to the jar. When it comes to adding your items to the jar, you can add as much or as little as you like based on your own intuitive guidance. Just make sure that you're leaving room for all of the items. You don't want to overpack the jar and then not have any room to be able to complete the spell. Next, we're going to be adding the Blessed Thistle. And I'm going to smudge the thistle in the same way that I did with the pine bark. I'm just going to pour out about a pinch full and hold that in between my fingers and hold it over the smoke. Again, while I'm smudging each of the items, I'm continuing to focus on my intent of bringing a barrier of protection against illness to aid my body in the regeneration of healthy cells and to release anything that does not serve me. Now we're moving on to the red sandalwood. Again, the red sandalwood is optional. It's not something that's needed. I've used it in the past, both with and without. I do find that it does have its own attributes that definitely help out in the spell, so I would recommend it. This is red sandalwood chips. If you don't have this, you can use red sandalwood powder. You can use red sandalwood oil. I've even been in a bind where I've used sandalwood incense and scraped it off the stick to put into my spell jar. Sometimes you gotta be resourceful. And then this is a clipping of my hair. I'm adding in a personal effect. This is again optional, but I do typically with any spell jar, whether it's for myself or for someone else, I try to add a personal effect. Of course, if it's for someone else, I use their personal effect, but that just gives a more binding connection to you. So if you forget to take the jar with you and you leave it at home, it's still connected to you. Next, I'm adding in the essential oil, the Health and Rebirth oil. I'm adding in a total of 6 drops. The number for health is 2. So you can add in however many drops you like. Just make sure that you do it in multiples of 2. And I tend to do things by 3s. So 2, 4, 6. Therefore, I added 6 drops. I'm closing up my jar, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with the raffia and putting the Sun Pendant on there. So this is what it looks like now. Every jar will look independent to the witch, so if yours doesn't look like mine, it's still gonna work, don't worry. So now I'm gonna be putting on the Sun Pendant. Putting a pendant on a spell jar is completely optional. Since I am working with the idea and the energy of the birth of the sun god, I'm personally putting on the pendant as an additional boost and kind of giving honor to the sun and allowing that energy from the sun god, from the sun, to connect with my spell jar and give it kind of a magical boost. And with this particular spell jar, when it's time to recharge it, it will need to be recharged out in the sun. I'm just made sure that the pendant was in the middle of my twine, so that way I can wrap around one side and then I'll wrap around the other side, making sure I go over the loop where the pendant connects to the raffia. That way my pendant lies flat and doesn't stick straight out. Once you have your twine on tight, go ahead and tie it off. And once you have it tied off, you can go ahead and trim off any of the excess twine. I forgot to bring scissors to my spell work, so I'm being resourceful and using the candle flame. If you do this, put out the part closest to the jar as quickly as possible, or it's going to burn all the way down and your twine is going to unravel. So here's the final spell jar. This is what it looks like. You can stop here if you like to, or if you want to, you can continue on and drip candle wax as a final sealant. If you think you're going to be adding to the spell jar in the future, say if you come across garnet and you didn't have it now, or if you wanted to add another personal effect that you didn't have now, you can always add it in the future. But if you seal it with the wax, you're really not going to be able to do that. So this part is optional, but I do tend to like to do it myself. And while I'm doing this, I'm doing the whole thing like I did with the smudging, where I'm connecting the energy from my candle to the energy in my spell jar, all the meanwhile focusing on my intent to bring a barrier of protection against illness, to aid my body in regeneration of healthy cells, and to release all that does not serve me. So you can't see me, but I'm kind of blowing on the top just for the sake of the video so I can show you the finished bottle. But you would want to just let it rest and let the wax cool down on its own. I got a little bit of wax on the pendant, which doesn't hurt it. For myself, I will be scraping it off later off camera. But here we go. This is the final spell jar for Health and Rebirth. Before I close up the spell, I just want to sit with the jar for a little while and put my energy into the jar. This process you can take as little or as long as you feel comfortable, and whatever feels right to you intuitively. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to spend a minute doing it. Off video, I'm probably going to sit for quite a while holding the jar while my candle burns down. Again, that's completely optional to you. While you're not holding the jar and putting intent to it, just keep the jar close to your candle. That way it's still within its energy field and being charged by your spell candle. And to close off the spell, we're just clearing the energy once more. So I'm doing one ring over the candle, one ring over my jar, and one ring over myself. And that pretty much completes the spell. You can stop here. I'm going to go a little bit further and just repeat the incantation. Power of the sun, reborn each year, I call upon your magic here. Rays of light shining bright, fix my health and make me right. Remove any illness I may have, protecting me from any coming back. I cast this spell while I make this jar, carrying this magic with me near and far. Power of the sun, reborn each year, I call upon your magic here. Rays of light shining bright, fix my health and make me right. Remove any illness I may have, protecting me from any coming back. I cast this spell while I make this jar, carrying this magic with me near and far. Power of the sun, reborn each year, I call upon your magic here. Rays of light shining bright, fix my health and make me right. Remove any illness I may have, protecting me from any coming back. I cast this spell while I make this jar, carrying this magic with me near and far. That concludes my spell today. Thank you for joining me. If you cast this spell, I would love if you left me a comment on how it worked out for you. If you made any intuitive changes, I would definitely love to hear that. If you're new to my channel and you like this content, then make sure that you like and subscribe, and make sure that you hit that notification bell so that way you can receive notification every time I post a video. I'm trying to get onto a schedule. Of course, I'm pretty new to the whole YouTube scene, so creating a schedule as of right now, it's kind of come and go. So that bell helps you out a lot. But until the next video, thank you again for joining me. Merry we part.